As we said, main concepts will be students' participation, learner-centered curriculum, and how to design, let's say, program. First, we all know that education doesn't matter on which level of education. This is planned activity. So we have some kind of program. It is true that in the past, let's say, especially in US, they try to have some kind of schools which were open schools with downed program. Children have to opportunity to choose any kind of, let's say, activities, but they find out that this is not really okay, because if you know what happened with Sputnik in 1957, Russians were much more in front of the, let's say, US education, even though that at the beginning of the 20th century, Dewey was philosopher which really introduced the idea of democratic society and the democratic teaching and learning. But we could say maybe that society was not really prepared for this kind of, let's say, experiment, because we cannot forget that, let's say, 100 years there was still in place some kind of authoritarian approach toward education. So we had quite a lot of very humanistic approaches, student-centered approaches, even in Socrates' time. But, you know, practice deals with people, with everyday people. Teacher is person which lives in the society, and of course this implicit theory about teaching and learning developed inside of the society. So it means that, wow, theory could be in place already, I don't know, 400 years ago, but how to do it in reality, in society, in classrooms, with children which were, let's say, used to have authoritarian relations at home. So it was quite challenging, but still we could say education itself remains planned and structured activity which have goals, and we have to, and some kind of results have to be in place. Otherwise, if results are not in place, then we cannot expect that these students, when they will finish school, they will have opportunity, let's say, to change their own life, and also to participate in society, to change the society, let's say, in a way. So, but even though that it is planned activity, it's important that we know that it has to mean something to the students in any level of education. So in preschool, primary school, secondary school, and of course at the university. I think that online education is okay because it's in a way inclusive and so on, because everybody could participate. It would not be possible before to meet in such kind of nice environment before if you not have internet and this kind of tools. But still, you know, in the classroom, their relations became more important, and teacher could see students if they are lost in space, let's say, or if it is meaningful for them what's happening in the interaction. So for personalized teaching and learning is also face-to-face very important. And even though if we work face-to-face or online, we have to have somewhere in our mind this importance of meaningful learning, let's say, for students. Okay, this is the starting point, let's say, of this our meeting. So planned activity, and also how to ensure that this activity, planned activity, became, let's say, meaningful for learner. Because there is some students, quite a lot of students, which they only follow. They just only listen. They do anything what we want. They appreciate everything. And at the end, maybe they are the best, well, very good students. They pass all exams. But, you know, when they come to the place, when they start to work, they still wait maybe somebody to tell them what to do. Oops, I think that this is not the result or something that we expect, let's say, also from universities, but even from other, let's say, levels of education. Okay, so what we are talking about when we, let's say, discuss quality in education. Well, you know, we talk a lot also about access to the university. For example, in Slovenia, 48% of let's say young people from 19 to 24 are included in the higher education. But this is only access to the higher education. The problem is also, well, when the doors are open, is the question if you will enter through these doors. This is one thing. And the other thing is what kind of environment is there for you, let's say, to be successful. So it's not something that we have to be proud of really if we have enough space for or places for students to learn, but it's also important, let's say, if there are also, let's say, conditions for students in place that they could be successful there. So most of you probably are, let's say, familiar with Raul's distributative, let's say, understanding of justice. Well, it's okay that we think about it, but it's also very important that we think about care, because I think that pedagogy itself deals much more with care than with, let's say, only distribution, you know. So access itself do not guarantee the quality. We probably know that. So now I would like to invite you, because I hope that you see this QR code. Do you see this QR code?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Could you scan it? I would like to invite you to, let's say, to answer what did you appreciate in your university teachers. We were all, let's say, students. So first, what did you appreciate at your university teachers? As you see, availability, understanding, knowledge and commitment, ongoing training, friendly, relaxed, concern about students, and so on. And then what you really don't want to do as a teacher. Probably not relevant examples. Material classroom or discard, tense environment, different profiles in the classroom. Okay, well, as you see, especially here, as you see, what did you appreciate in university teachers? If you want to say something about it, what does it mean? What did you find something common with your, let's say, what did you write there? Did you find something common in these words? You could just say, you could put your mic on and you could say.
Yes, it's the idea of being there for the student, of focusing on the student, and having the student at center of the learning process.
Thank you. Sometimes it's also, when I ask, let's say, teachers, university teachers, let's say, teachers give me opportunity to make mistakes. I had opportunity to take risk, and I was appreciated in things that I said, even though that it was not really conventional knowledge. And he's fond of the subject and so on. And if we compare this with our understanding of quality nowadays, we see that this is in a way very, very different. So we are, in a way, we have two things in our minds: our feelings about what was okay when we were students, and nowadays what we have to do, and also what we dislike when we were students. So those are so many layers of our feelings, and in a way we feel alienated because we think that we have to follow program in a way. On the other side, here are students, and we also as students appreciate what was written here. So probably what we appreciate at that time, we would probably like to ensure also our students. So how to ensure it during this inside of this structure, which is quite demanding, let's say. Probably we are all in some kind of conflict with that, but still, you know, answers are always really the same. So mainly, if we say one word about this, one common word, it's, let's say, supportive interaction. Supportive interaction. The word which defines everything what you write down is supportive interaction. Supportive interaction could be seen on three levels. One is social and emotional supportive environment. The other is quite challenging instructions and differentiated instructions. And third is really challenging discussion, which push me further than I am now and here in this situation with my knowledge. So three different parts of interactions are important. Not only well-being, to have fun in the classroom, to feel relaxed, at ease, but we appreciate when we learn a lot. And if somebody supports us with this, within this learning. So it means that tasks have to be quite challenging for them, but I have to explain to you, even though that I didn't think before to talk about, but anyway, you know, when we learn anything, what we learn, we could see this or categorize this in three different categories. First category is independent learning. So we could learn by ourselves because it's not a lot of new things and we feel quite comfortable. And this is, we could find the meaning from the context, you know. There are some words new words or concepts new, but we could manage because other things we know. Then it's instructional level. Instructional level is level where we need pairs and teachers, and I don't know, nowadays is internet, books, and so on. So something that helps us to improve. And the third level is the level which we don't know that exists. We as a teachers, many times, we forgot how it was when we stuck in the process of learning, because sometimes we were, as a teachers, definitely, and as a students, we were definitely sometimes in situation when we said, oh my God, probably everybody knows around me what's happening, and I don't know. So this is frustration level. We think that everybody knows what's going on, only us. No, this is our personal, in this moment, frustration level. And it means that's too much for us in this moment. So it's more than 10% of new knowledge content, and we just cannot go beyond, because it's too much. Probably, I don't know which, let's say, subject was too difficult for you or very difficult for you. Maybe for some people is mathematics, for some people is language, for some people is I don't know what. But everybody have some kind of, I don't know, topic that feel that, let's say, goes a little bit slowly than other topics, and then you stuck somewhere, and then you feel, well, you recognize in a moment that you don't understand anything anymore, and you feel stupid. Yeah, and this happens almost every day to the students, and we say that they are not motivated, but maybe we didn't choose the right tasks for them because they don't understand yet. They are not stupid, they are not motivated, they only demonstrate their level of frustration level, and they don't really behave. Maybe their behavior is more, let's say, connected with like I don't, I lose myself, I will do other things, and so on. But you have to be careful. Students' behavior is the same when tasks are too difficult, or if tasks are not enough difficult. So it's very, very difficult to find out what is the best, let's say, task for students. And that's why I think that students' participation is very, very important topic because of that. Because students, let's say, can help us to find out what is important for them in situation. Now I have to show you this. Look, we have very respectful, really good teacher. She starts with higher didactic in Slovenia, Barica Marentić-Požarnik, and she said that teachers have to have this kind of knowledge. So content knowledge, this is what we are fond of, let's say, and what we know. And we have developed all the time this content knowledge, which is our field, let's say, field of research. And then general pedagogical knowledge, this is concept of teaching, schooling, assessing, and so on. And then psychological knowledge. We are not aware, well, I don't know, those who finished, let's say, pedagogical programs, they know that there we have to be aware of developmental psychology and developmental characteristics of young people, because they fall asleep in the classroom, even though the lecture and everything what's happening is super, because they are really, really tired. When they are 18, 19, they are really, really tired, and it could happen that they fall in the classroom. Well, so we have to know what is developmental characteristic of students. And also, let's say, for example, if you work in the field of adults, we have to know developmental characteristic of adults or older people and so on. If you work in let's say, in preschool education, we have to be aware about developmental characteristics of children. So if you work in this field, we have to know what are characteristics of those people. It means from 18 till 30 at least. And then we need specialized didactic knowledge, which is connected with our content knowledge. So let's say if we teach math, many times it's totally different didactics. Could be then, let's say, if we teach, I don't know, maybe philosophy. I didn't know before that, because first I thought that I was not really aware. Nowadays, when I was during these 14 years in interaction with all kinds of teachers from in any kind of fields, and I see huge differences between, let's say, didactic from one field to another field. And I thought that all these student-centered approaches could be applied, especially in, let's say, in humanistic in humanistic, in those fields. I find out that nature science are fields where they easily incorporate, because they are doing experiments, they posing questions, they ask themselves. It's really inquiry-based learning and teaching, and they immediately find out when students is lost in space with knowledge and they don't improve anymore. So teachers, for example, math teachers, they have to know how to teach students that they will continue with learning, and especially they have to see the whole process, how teachers think, because we think that when we talk, students could understand those concepts. When we talk, maybe they understand, but when we, as a teacher, let's say math teacher, when math teacher write on the table, they see the thinking path of the teacher, and this is really, really important. That's why, let's say, slides only, let's say maybe pictures of something, are not really helpful. Maybe this is some kind of representation of something, pictures, but it really doesn't help to understand the concepts, to students. It's not really helpful for students. That's why specialized didactic knowledge, how we teach some fields, this is very important in a way, and curricular knowledge about curricula, legislation, organization, and practical knowledge, some practical knowledge, let's say, which develop during our work. So what knowledge is often, for your understanding, overlooked in higher education and not given enough attention? If you look at this knowledge, which is overlooked for your understanding, let's say a formal understanding, let's say, of quality. One dimension of quality is structural dimension, which is, let's say, connected with material conditions, ratio, teacher students. As far as I know, is in very good universities, they have ratio of, I don't know, one teacher and 15 students. If I would have 15 students, my students would be probably space shuttle. I don't know. I mean, this ratio is the most important, because you cannot support or supervise, or I don't know what, 400 students. I have to say that this is much more clear in other levels of education, let's say in preschool, primary school, secondary school. They know that a ratio is the most important thing. And it's also very important in the higher education. And material conditions are also very important, even though the students, when they are adults, they find information everywhere. Okay. And of course, teachers' qualifications and research is also important. If you look, for example, and think a little bit about, let's say, what students really want to listen or discuss of, they really, I don't know about your experience, but I find out that when I talk about my research findings, about research, how we are doing research, what we find out, what we think that would be interesting, and so on, students really want to listen. That what are your experience? Is the same with you? About research, they want to hear new research findings, really, not old things, old knowledge, new things. Did you find also the same? Even though they're
rarely
really?
In my case, yes.
Wow, interesting. Okay, because I find here in Slovenia that they are really curious about new things. And okay, basic knowledge, they appreciate basic knowledge, but basic knowledge have to be combined with new knowledge, really, really. otherwise they find boring, let's say. And the other dimension of quality is process indicator. Now we will come to the place, you know, what we discussed before. So what are the qualities of the teacher? But we will go here now. First, as I see, when we discuss about your experiences, you know, what was good teacher for you? Who was good teacher? What are characteristics of good teacher? With whom you like to relate, really, discuss and so on. You talk about, in a way, very personal experiences, feelings also. And here is this teacher-students supportive interactions, social, emotional, cognitive. So in this support, this is one thing. And then safe and supportive environment with material, social, emotional environment. And then assessment and planning. As teachers have to know how to assess and how to plan. We will come to the point. And meaningful learning strategies, collaborative work of students with teachers, research approach, experiential learning, problems-based learning. I find this problem-based learning quite demanding, let's say, in my field, theory of education, because I'm always struggling how to ensure inquiry-based learning when you have to read so much of content that you are able, let's say, to understand things, combine synthesis and so on. And I find that it's not good to ask students to read, I don't know, till the next meeting 50 pages, because they will not read it. They will not read. Once I have very interesting discussion with a quite old professor, and he was a philosopher. Yeah, he teach philosophy at the technical university, something like that. And he said, yes, we are doing flipped classroom philosophy. And I said, oh, wow. How many pages you give them to read before they come to the classroom? And he looked at me, pages? Well, only few sentences, he said. And I asked him, sorry, and how they will improve? He said, if I would ask them to read 50 pages, nobody would read it. And the most important thing is that they would not understand what they read. Wow. So I find out from this very short discussion that we have to give students to read really, really important passages, which are important content to cover the, let's say, some kind of goals. And after that, when concepts are quite clear, then you could go further on in investigation, researching, because if starting point of concepts are really important, we cannot just lose the track, you know. I mean, we cannot invent hot water. Hot water already exists. So let's start with hot water, which we already know, and then go further on. But, you know, first you have to know what is hot water and then to go further on, and not to invent hot water at the beginning. That's important. So, and then you see those techniques, teaching techniques, learning strategies are really important. What we will choose, but also, let's say, where we will start. We will after that we will discuss that. And then cooperation with community. We all cooperate with community. We have some kinds of projects with community. Let's say community and environment is also some kind of content, fruit, some kind of application of knowledge. If we cooperate and have project with society, then with the environment, they see, let's say, they see knowledge, and they see how knowledge could be implemented, where they could see importance of their knowledge. I teach in pedagogical programs. That's why I see how they became really good students in a way when they see this theoretical knowledge important to let's say to discuss and to implement in the practice. Okay, and then inclusion, democratic values, diversity. So probably this topic is not really problematic, I think, in academic environment. We don't have, I hope so, that we don't have problems with that. But still, we cannot refuse, let's say, students because of any kind of individual, let's say, characteristics, really individual characteristics. So I think that here it's really important how we ensure students to be successful. Here I think that comes in place, for example, I don't know, I like to speak about, let's say, Roma students, because, well, also Roma students have opportunity to study at the faculty. Everybody have opportunity to study at the faculty. Well, probably they have also, yes, they have definitely, they have enough money also to come, because education here is free in Slovenia. You could study for free. If you don't have money, you could also have very cheap dormitory and so on. So it's not the problem with the money. It's problem with the, let's say, understanding of yourself, your aspirations. And when somebody, let's say, some groups or individuals come to the university, and you know that this is really huge success for them, I think that we have to appreciate and nurture it. I don't know how it's in your countries, but for example, in Slovenia, many times happens, let's say, on pedagogical study programs, I recognize, because on others, let's say, on other faculties I don't work, that when students finish, let's say, study, the whole family comes. It's celebration of I mean, family celebration when the child finish, let's say, higher school, I mean, tertiary education. So it means that it was not easy to come to this point. And that's important that we understand in interaction with students. There are not only students which are born in a library, but are also students which they maybe pretend and hide their background because, well, sometimes you don't know what you don't have. You know maybe what you have, but I think that we have to recognize many things which are maybe not recognized on other levels of education, because we find out, for example, in Slovenia, that other levels of education are really difficult for these students, which they are coming from, let's say, lower background, lower situations, economic situations, because they struggle. And if they come to the university, I think that we are able, let's say, to recognize this situation, and I hope. And this is part of quality. Please, we have to have in mind. And then teachers' professional development. If you are here today, then it means that you care of your understanding of your profession. And you see, here are, let's say, 7 domains which, let's say, build quality of teacher. Well, but we have, you see, European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education expect in standards of quality. Student-centered learning, teaching and assessment have to be in place. It means that institutions should ensure that the programs are delivered in a way that encourage students to take an active role in creating the learning process, please, not to be only active, in creating the learning process, and that the assessment of students reflect this approach. I don't understand this second part, but I have to say that active role in creating the learning process, this is very important, not only active methods, because if we talk about active methods, it's really dangerous, because students could be active, but they don't really participate. This is huge mistake when we think that when students are active, they also participate, because they could only follow things which you expect from them. Let's say that's very let's say, difficult part, because it's some kind of manipulation of students. Yes, but it happens, you know, in all levels of education. Students, when we see students, how they work, they could be very active. Activities could be very meaningful, let's say, for them. But, you know, if we ask them, what are you doing? They would not know what they are doing. They just know, we are writing. What you are writing? What teacher said? Sorry? Okay, what teacher said? Okay. You know, that's the problem. So participation is far beyond that. But we are mostly not aware of it. Okay. How do you think a lecture should be organized from start? Think about yourself in your mind, how you see yourself at the moment when you are learning, studying. How do you see yourself in the moment when you study, you are learning, you are in the process of, you are learning, you learn something. Did you make a picture in your head already? Probably yes. Did you? You have a picture of yourself? You have probably. So now was like this? Was this like this picture? Something like that? Was like that? Like that? This? We were in the process of learning now. This is process of learning that we have to have in mind all the time, because this is some kind of circle which is seen in all kind of situations of learning. And it has to be arranged in this way also in lectures, because if we don't arrange in this way, then we do not appreciate prior knowledge and prior experiences. I will show you the process. In evocation process, I ask you, how do you see yourself as a learner? I didn't ask you, let's say, what do you know about learners? How learning starts? If I would ask you how learning starts, maybe we feel quite comfortable. But if I would ask you about theory of learning, how cognitive process starts in the construction of knowledge, according to the I don't know which theory, you would probably not feel very comfortable. Maybe on the other side, because you could put off your cameras. But otherwise, I see in the classroom many times, if I ask in such a way, the students always feel uncomfortable, because they think that they have to know already. Something, of course, they have to know, but you know, it's much more opportunity to have diverse answers and diverse experiences, to get and gather and to communicate diverse experiences. If we ask, how do you see yourself as a learner? Different kind of options are. So this is our personal experience, and these personal questions, which are not really personal in a way, what signs of I don't know what you have, but your feelings, your thoughts, I think that gives us opportunity to open our minds, feelings, and we are prepared, let's say, to go on. And then I show you these different, let's say, pictures. Yes, different pictures. And this was phase of realization. It's phase of getting something new content, looking at the pictures, diverse opportunities. And then we start to discuss, reflect, why I see myself in a way as I see, and other options. Look, this process takes only, I think, 5 minutes or something like that, but it has to be like that, organized in this way. this process could be, let's say, organized in, I don't know, in 1 week, in 1 hour, in 1 year. But the structure itself has to be like that. So first is evocation, which is, let's say, which is start with personalizing of learning. And then realization, this is fast of new knowledge. It's not only teachers' knowledge, but also students' knowledge, because we start to discuss. Here we start to discuss how we see ourselves, you know? And then we reflect together also. I also reflect with you. So it was not only my content, it was your content. Your content was much more important. And your content gives you opportunity to develop your own feelings, to your own concepts. You just add to prior content, to prior concept, or let's say totally change. This is Piaget theory of learning. So we could put together with prior knowledge, or we could develop totally new concept because it's so different from first understanding, for example. This is really, really very important. Especially this evocation phase is really important because it could be really stressful for students. You know, many times you see meaning of evocation, the act of bringing a feeling, a memory or image into our mind, knowledge in our mind, and so on. You know, I would probably never ask my students, what do you know about Herbert? Even though that it's topic that has to be covered during the lectures. So I would never ask them, what do you know about Herbert? Because I know that probably they don't know anything about Herbert. But I ask them, what do you think, how it looked, I don't know, educational process at the beginning of 19th century? How do you think and why you think that, let's say, if science of education starts, was any kind of conditions in your opinion? And then discussion starts, and then we could start with conventional knowledge, which could be, of course, students with their own questions during the discussions could push me to the totally different, to different topics also, and different questions, because their questions are, let's say, path to their knowledge, to their learning. And of course, at the end, look, here it is realization. You see, realization is new, creating new meanings, because it's important. Meaning is important. It's not covering, remembering, understanding. It's meaning, what means to me. And then reflection is something which is not how much I remember during about this discussion, but what it means to me. How can I connect this, what was happening during the educational process? How can I connect this with prior understanding of that? So this is what's happening in our heads, could be verbalized also, could be written also, because I would like to invite you to think really, really deeply and be concerned about the process in the classroom. It's very important that students have opportunity to talk, to listen, to write and read during the lectures. Four communicative skills. 2 skills we get from listening and reading, and we express with writing and talking. So we really have to have in mind that we could ensure also expression in this reflection phase. But you know, in students' mind, especially in those students' mind which don't want to talk, let's say, some students, you have to push them to talk, let's say, push them to talk and write in meaningful discussion, of course, because otherwise they would not verbalize. But if they don't verbalize, then they don't have opportunity, let's say, to reflect their concepts. You know, this is especially difficult when you have, let's say, very smart students. You know, very smart students they capture very quickly the meaning. And the problem is that, you know, when you hear something and you understand something, you understand on some level. On some level, you understand. I remember, and I find this when I heard the same lecture for the five times the same lecture, and I notice how my concepts change. And very smart students think that when they hear, they understand, and they think, just leave me alone. Without reading, without writing, without discussing, without listening others. So we have to arrange opportunities for students to, let's say, to use those, let's say, to use this expression, these opportunities to ensure opportunities to talk, to listen, to write, to read. No need to a lot, you know, small things to do that they, let's say, think about the concepts in different ways, in different interactions, and so on. Well, now is the time to talk about where really in a structure students could enter, you know. First, where to start with educational structure. First, of course, we have to think what are the outcomes. What we have to, let's say, what have to be, let's say, achieved in a way. But we have to ask ourselves, who is the person? And what he, she know, need, and why? And if we don't really ask, if we don't really focus on their thinking and about prior experiences, we cannot personalize knowledge, you know? Who are those people which are in front? You know, I'm really totally lost in space if I don't know people which are in front. That's why I asked you at the beginning from which field you are, what you are doing. And so it's really, really important, because you just cannot address, you know, once in the research, when we wanted to, I don't know what to do in the research, but I know the case, how it was important. When we talk about prior knowledge, yes, about this transition from, let's say, undergraduate study to the graduate study, and from other countries to another countries, yes, we try to develop, let's say, good conditions for foreign students. And I ask them, how do, they start to talk what they did already in their environment before they come into the Slovenia, our university, and so on. And then one student which were on the master, he said that he worked in research in international companies and so on, a lot of different kind of experiences. He was, I don't know, 20, 21 or something like that. A lot. I just look at him and I said, did you say that? Did you share your experience with teachers when you come here before you start? And he said, no, before. Did you share your experience with your teachers? Did they know what you do already? And he said, yes. And then I said, when did you share with them? And he said, at the exam. Sorry, half a year too late. You know, he sit in the classroom and listen like I don't know, students without any experience. So if you don't know who are in the classroom, sorry, even one characteristics of each student, you cannot personalize, because maybe you talk things that he already know. I know many students which they don't finish study because they say, sorry, I will not listen them because I know that already, and or it's old-fashioned knowledge or something like that. If teacher knows who is in front of them, they could not, I mean, they could really appreciate, respect, and address these experiences before, I mean, during the lectures. And then we have to ask ourselves how we will achieve these goals. This is methodology, pedagogy, process. We have to, in theater, they have scenario, and they know exactly what will follow. When we go to the theater, when we go to the ballet and concert and so on, we are just there and we just look and we just listen and so on. And it's so nice, everything. And well, we are relaxed and we just listen. And we are there and we just look, and it's time for us, let's say. And we are not aware how technical thing is this scenario behind it. So when somebody comes to the classroom, probably nobody really knows what's behind this, what kind of preparation has to be in place before teachers come there to organize those kind of discussions and so on and so on. And then how we, students and teacher, will know that students achieve the goal. So we have to maybe develop together standards or indicators of the results. Yeah, it's important also to develop together. The materials have to ensure personalization and students, the recognition also of their knowledge, and then intensive interactions with materials. Now I will show you what we didn't, well, let's say we developed this we just have the international project. We work together, colleague from Poland, Ukraine, Estonia, and Slovenians. We work together on the level of higher ed didactics, and we develop this together. It looks so easy, but very complicated things looks very easy. But the problem with the structure of didactic structure of educational processes, how to combine all those things together in a way that you will not have totally, confusion in your head, and especially confusion in the classroom. So we developed this, let's say, not pattern, but structure. First is we develop what we would like to learn. So we have to list outcomes. And then we have to connect content with these outcomes. Content have to be in connection with outcomes. And then we have to ask how we will cover these outcomes, what I will do in the classroom to cover these outcomes. And at the same time, we have to plan assessment, because when we are planning goals and and also content, we have to at the same time plan assessment, because if we don't plan assessment, could be assessment somewhere else, and it's not fair. It's not fair for students. It's not fair, and in a way, it's not fair also for us, because this is work that we have to be done at the end if we don't plan together. Okay, and now what do we need to ask ourselves to ensure the quality of the program? First, we have to ask, do I teach at undergraduate, master, or doctoral level? This is huge, really huge differences. And I know that on all universities, they have problems with this differentiation and exact understanding what students need at the undergraduate, what students need at the master, and what students need at the doctor. Things could be connected, but still those are different skills and not the same topics and not the same goals. So program, what is the general purpose, objective of the program? Because, the first who recognize that it's totally chaos at the faculty and at the program are students, because they recognize that some teachers just jump into the classroom, have lectures, go out, and there is no connection between topics, between subjects, between, that there is not the program in the place. And this is really problematic. So as a teachers, first we have to know where we are. So what is the aim of the program? Because if we don't know what is the aim of the program, then it's no opportunity to develop some kind of professional or academic identity. Because I think that students need universities nowadays, not because of informations or databases or I don't know what, but they need, let's say, somebody who will help him to develop their own professional identity. This is very difficult, I think. To get knowledge somewhere, I don't know, some pieces of knowledge, it's not very difficult. But to develop some kind of identity, the purpose, it's not easy, really. And in 3 years or 5 years still. So, I mean, that one, I think that medicine do it really properly, I think. And also, I hope that also on let's say, programs for education, we have to develop that also. And I think that this identity is crucial. And I think that program have to have what is identity behind the program. Okay. And then objective of and purposes of the course. So then is the course. First is degree, then is program, and then is course. And then, of course, students come because they read on the internet degree, they read on the internet, they choose program, and they choose the course. They see what are the differences. They choose universities. They come there because they choose universities, they choose program. But when they come to the university, to the program, now starts place of freedom, let's say. Freedom for students and for teachers, for my understanding. Because, let's say, what is general content and what could be designed with the student? Content of the course could be developed together, definitely. And then implementation of the course. How will I ensure the development of knowledge, skills, attitudes, didactic? How I will ensure the emerging curriculum together? This is the question. Those are a lot of different kinds of opportunities. Methodology of learning circle, I'm showing you one of, here is web page where you could see it's clearly defined. So first is some kind of way of awareness. Students became aware and interests begin in some kind of topic, and then we have to only show them where they can get more information about it and so on. And they develop at the beginning very unconventional knowledge, and we help with questions. Socrates died because of that, or because of questioning. Through questions, help them to develop, of course, conventional meaning and also subjective meaning. And this is crucial here to help students, let's say, to develop their own meaning, but also, as I said, conventional, because, of course, we cannot accept, let's say, that students do on their own way if, let's say, the protocol is important for, let's say, if survivor, for example, in medicine or healthcare or something, if protocols are very exact, then it has to be like that. Maybe, of course, they developed by themselves. They think that they argument, they explain how they see, why it's important in this way, why they think that this is in this way. But the protocol itself, they have to know the protocol, and how they will come to this protocol, how they will learn this protocol. This is their own way, could be their own way. So meaningful learning starts with evocation, realization, and reflection. And just at the beginning, when I thought about the T words, I said, oh, I have to show this table too. So we could develop together with students about the topic, what I think I know, not what do you know, what I think I know about this, what I think about it also. Here is evocation. What I would like to know, those are research questions, students and also teachers' research questions. Maybe here could student, what I think I know, here could students say something that we even didn't hear before. Maybe we could also, this is some kind, their statement, their knowledge could be also some kind of hypothesa or some kind of research questions which we could write it here. We have to check it. We don't know yet. We have to check if it's true or not true really, but how we could understand that what you are talking could be interesting viewpoint, and so on and so on. So here is place for hypotheses and research questions. And here is how I will find out. Of course, in research, we have instruments, we have observation, we have, I don't know what, questionnaires, we have documents and so on. So here are techniques of researching, and they are researching to find out, to answer their questions. And not only at the end, also during the process, they could ask themselves, what I learn, not only learn, but how I change how I think my opinion, let's say. Because during the process, we could also change opinion. Um, uh, Sometimes even no values, not really, because, or maybe even, but this is personal meaning, uh, in not only at the end, also during the process. And the best thing is that we have this on, I don't know, online, those things, and that students from, I don't know, that this is the project work, and that students could also follow, see, and discuss also projects of other students. I find, let's say, Moodle. Oh, I didn't like Moodle at the beginning because, those tasks or assignment, they had to put in the black hole, students, and I had to assess those things. And students didn't see each other's work. For me, it was really difficult that I thought that they are not doing for me. They are not doing for assessment. They are doing for themselves. It's important that they could learn from each other, to see each other's work. And if they see each other's work, they could progress because they see how other groups did. I don't really mind if they see something in other groups, and then they find some kind of association according to, and they see, maybe it would be interesting also to approach like this in our project, and so on. We could also include this kind of gathering data. I didn't even think about it, and so on. So this kind of project work is the process. Of course, they have to work together. Maybe could be those projects individual projects, or let's say group projects, or project also from the whole classroom. But Georgios, at the beginning you asked when curriculum and students meet. Here, you see, here is place for teacher and students at the beginning. What I think I know. And of course, this is reflection of students, and we hear students, we hear them, we see not where they are, but how they think, what are their concepts. And then here is place for teachers and for students, not only for students, also we together could pass the questions which are connected with the curriculum. And how I will find out, we define together how we will find out, and then what I will learn and how I will change my opinion together. The meaningful teaching process gives opportunity for meaningful learning, but nothing is outside of the learning circle. If you want to learn something, really it has to be in the learning circle. If we are looking from inquiry-based learning methods, it is in this way. It's in learning circle, you see. If we identify the problem, phrase the research questions, collect ideas, experiment, observe, and analyze and reflect. This is here on this web page. I find really nicely explained. So the problem, most important is to recognize the phenomenon, the problem, and then to search things. Yes. Now I will just briefly show you, because we just go beyond, let's say. I will show you what, let's say, Freire said about, let's say, about these differences between student-centered learning and teaching. What difference, let's say, student teaching, learning from the traditional approach. You see, Freire in 1970, he already said the teacher teach students, and students are taught, and only teacher speaks, and only teacher knows, and so teacher choose for students, and so on. And he said that this reflect oppressive society as a whole. He said this is really dangerous, and probably we really have to have that in mind. And principles of student-centered teaching are, for my understanding, this is some kind of starting point. Starting point for student-centered learning is, for my example, for me, this, and this. Teacher autonomy and recognition of the students as competent partners. So if we take autonomy and recognize students as competent partners, I think that we will manage. Students' participation with the power to co-determine the process and take responsibility. Because if students are not part of the process, and if they don't plan together and recognize the topics, they can't just take responsibility. And construction of meaningful and personalized knowledge, because personalized knowledge cannot be really in place and developed if we are not part of the process. We just learn something, remember something, and then pass the exam. I think that we have to be really engaged emotionally and in interactions, in really intensive interactions, not only with content, but also with teacher and with peers. Because we never know really. It's impossible, let's say, it's impossible, let's say, even not to assess how much really we learn in interaction with content, how much we learn interaction with teacher, and how much, I mean content, I mean with books and information on the internet and so on, and how much in interaction, in discussion with other students. Well, I would like to show you one more thing. Expectations and obligations. Official documents are program and courses. Our part is didactic, methodology, differentiation, individualization, personalization, students' participation, and emergent curriculum. And I think that during our discussion, I think that I think that it comes in place that those things are really important, and it's not only the case into the lower educational levels, but also here at the university. Otherwise, students are not motivated really to learn. And one thing more, why is useful to take students' prior knowledge into account? You know probably this story about elephant and, let's say, blind people. In the community, elephant comes, and when they ask them how it looks, elephant, and everybody says as they experience. So we have to know that students' knowledge and attitudes towards something is connected with their own experiences, and here it starts. And if they then participate in developing questions and developing process, then it becomes personalized knowledge. Otherwise, just, let's say, pass the exam. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. Thank you very much for today. Yeah.